Good afternoon and welcome to our first Spring 2021 campus conversation. The purpose of our talk today will be to discuss updates for Spring 2021 in campus and academic planning, and also to answer some questions from the community. First, we will begin with some updates from our leadership panelists here, and then we will open the floor for some questions. Some of these questions have already been submitted, but you'll also have an opportunity to post questions in the Q&A box below, or you can raise your hand and I'll call upon you to ask the question for the panelists. So let's go ahead and get started. Our four panelists presented here today from our AUC leadership: President Francis Ricardoni, Provost Ehab Abdulrahman, VP for Student Life, Dina Burai, and Senior VP for Administration, Planning, and Transformation, Ayman Abdul Latif. President Ricardoni, if we could have your updates.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henry, for the introduction and for chairing this session today. And thanks to all for participating. I'm watching the numbers grow as we're beginning here. When I was asked to speak about updates, really what I'm pointing out is what we already all know and feel, but it's not something new, but it's something very good. We've got even more of a record now. We have a full year since we first heard of this thing that we thought might be contained at that point when we first heard about it as another odd little disease at a distant part of the world and not spread and reach us. And by a month from first hearing about this, we were already going into full online or near full online mode for the spring term. So we're coming up on an anniversary that's a painful one. But when I say what I have isn't new, but an accumulation of experience, it's experience that makes me very proud to be serving at AUC. We've shown immense resilience in the face of this dreadful worldwide phenomenon. It was only on May 7th last year that we registered our first case. I haven't yet checked today's dashboard, but when I checked yesterday, we were up to 950, almost 1,000 cases. And the pace of the spread was accelerating all through last term. We've seen worldwide and in Egypt that the numbers seem to be flattening, but by now we all know people, even many of us in our own households, if not in our households and nearby, who have contracted the disease, and sadly, many of us have lost loved ones to it. So it remains a very serious problem. Through all that, our students and faculty have just performed superbly under a lot of stress, a lot of frustration, a lot of strain, and yet we've accomplished the two things I think we set out to do at the beginning. Number one, do all we can to protect our community, our students, faculty, and staff from getting the disease. And while those numbers are high, I think we've done a really creditable job in keeping the numbers down, and certainly of severe cases down through tracking, testing, and tracing, and putting into place all the measures that the best practices used by the best American universities or universities worldwide: isolation, quarantine, spacing, and above all, in our industry of higher ed, online instruction, which has been so hard. And the second thing we set out to do, we've also managed to do, and that is to enable each student to continue her or his educational journey, yes, with stresses and strains, no question about that, no denying it. But the important thing, being able to continue through this truly historically unprecedented experience in our lifetimes. So I'm feeling very good about that at the start of spring term, delighted we are able to come together, and very hopeful that we can have some semblance of normal, just a semblance, but more physical presence on campus by the end of the spring term. As the weather gets better, there's more outdoor activity, we all get better and by now pretty well disciplined in wearing masks and washing hands and staying apart from each other physically. The question I know on everybody's mind is when we can talk about that. There is no answer, there's no date about when, even as we set dates by which we hope to decide. The provost can speak to this. Senior Vice President Ayman can speak to this, but really it's going to be conditions based. It's the same story we've had all this past year. And we can talk more about the tripwires and the conditions that we will have to see that will enable us to get together. But I'm optimistic. I've seen the resilience of our community, students, faculty, and staff. I again thank everyone for their discipline and commitment and just patience, the extraordinary patience we've all had to develop and nurture as we deal with this thing. We're not out of the woods. We can hope that the worst may be behind us if we can believe the numbers worldwide and in Egypt, maybe. But it's certainly not going to be done tomorrow. Getting the immunizations in place are going to be key to finally putting this behind us to a manageable level in the future. And that is simply unpredictable at this point. We know the first batches of Sinopharm have arrived in Egypt, and that's great news. But until it's widely available, I don't think we can delude ourselves into thinking life will be as before. So thanks very much. Welcome to a new spring term. May it be successful and fulfilling, and I hope even a little fun, at least a little. Compared to the past, maybe it can't be until we can all be together again. But I'm looking forward to a great spring term.
Thank you, President Ricardoni. If we could have a few words from Provost Dahab.
Thank you, Michelle. I joined President Ricardoni actually in being optimistic, and I hope that the spring semester will bring an end to this pandemic. We will stay tuned and we will work as hard in order to ensure the safety of our faculty, students, and staff. And for the planning for the spring semester, as you all know, we have announced before actually the government decides to almost close all universities in Egypt, that we will be offering partial face-to-face classes on campus at the beginning of the spring semester. We had actually to adjust our plan and to go fully online during the month of February with a promise that we're going to assess the situation and we're going to announce the plan starting March 1st as of February 15. So the Provost Council has already met today to look at the plan and discuss the plan going forward, but we did not take a decision yet. We will announce the university decision by February 15, and I'm sure that my colleague, VP Ayman Abdel-Latif, will give us more updates on the health issues or health status of our EEC community in a few minutes. With that, I would like also to join President Ricardoni in thanking all of our community, students, faculty, and staff of being resilient and making sure that we go through this pandemic together as one community. And I'm sure that the fall will be much, much better than what we have now. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Provost Dahab. VP for Student Life, Dina Barai.
Well, we in student life, without students, campus is very, very lonely, especially now when everything is online. We miss you all. We can't wait. And I echo the provost that we are very optimistic, and we would really, really like some form of on-the-ground classes, inshallah, will take place depending on the situation. What are the conditions on the ground. And I hope in the next few weeks, we can be more and more optimistic. And of course, as the president said, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have a long way to go before we can, I think we can go fully on the ground. I mean, that's quite clear. Now, regarding co-curricular life and student events, we have a very clear process in place that student organizations and student clubs will have to submit requests to run any events on the ground. And again, determining the decision to run events or not will depend always on the prevailing conditions. And we will always be aligned with our COVID-19 safety guidelines, as Senior VP Ayman Abdel-Latif will refer to. And we also will make sure that we will approve events that are of great value and need to be done on the ground, because we highly encourage also a hybrid and virtual events. And we hope that we will have a very active and lively student life in the coming few months, inshallah. Looking forward to meeting you all as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you very much. Senior VP Ayman.
Thank you, Dr. Henry, and I want to congratulate everyone on the beginning of a new semester, the spring semester. And spring is typically a time of celebration, and so let's celebrate this new milestone. As always, with the beginning of every semester, we start to prepare for that semester. This is no different, except that it is different because of the challenges that we're facing within the context of COVID. And so I want to start with some things that we're doing on the health front. Again, our primary concern is always the health of our community members. And so we continue to review and revise our triggers, what we're monitoring in terms of all the KPIs, and those KPIs and the triggers as to when we should scale down, but also when we should be able to scale up our presence on campus. And these are all thoughts and they're informed by a large group of people, but primarily the clinic, our doctors, but also, we're very fortunate to have Dr. Ashraf with us, the former Minister of Health, and he himself is an authority on that. So all of that informs our triggers and how we look and see the COVID situation. We are flattening, so that's the good news. We want to make sure that that continues to be the case. And we continue to refine the KPIs that we look at. So we look at those KPIs now in the context of the presence of our community on campus, not in absolute terms alone, because it does make a difference. We're also working very closely with PrimeSpeed, the providers of the testing, to continue to provide PCR testing, but also to expand beyond that to a new generation of testing, antigen testing. Specifically, we plan on making that available to our students who are on campus, resident students, to make, again, sure that they, at all times, our community is taken care of and remains healthy. On other fronts, we're also looking at reviewing our bus schedule, ensuring that we have enough capacity with social distancing, and ensuring that we have the capacity to also clean and make sure that the buses are kept in as hygienic position as possible. And we continue to invest in our infrastructure to make sure that our primary mission is taken care of, which is the education mission. So mid-February, we are adding extra internet capacity to the tune of we're increasing our capacity by 35%. And that's considerable achievement, to be honest. We also continue to work with the different schools to make sure that the software that is required for the students is available and is available on time and in a speedy manner. And we continue to work on packages with some of the internet providers and some of the mobile operators to make sure that we have special offers to our community at large. So not only corporate rates for our staff and our faculty, but also for our students. We have special rates, and we're working actually across the board to make those available. So that's in a nutshell, some of the preparations that we're making sure are happening for the beginning of the new semester. And I look forward to answering any questions during the session.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists for their opening comments. We have some interesting questions that we're going to direct. As a reminder, if you have a question in mind, you can raise your hand and I'll call upon you and you can ask your question to your panelists directly, or you can type the question in the Q&A box. We have some questions in the Q&A box now that I'd like to direct to, the first question I'd like to direct to VP Dina Barai. This question is regarding the deadline for dorms application. The decision is on February 15th, and I'm afraid to reserve dorms and classes fully online if they're fully online. At the same time, I'm afraid not to reserve and then find out that there's actually partial face-to-face classes. So I thought you could respond to that question.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, today the deadline is, we just have a few hours to go. So please do, please assume that there will be the same schedule that the provost referred to. There is the partial online. We're not sure yet, but if you don't reserve a place in the dorms, it will be too late for you to try and get in. If there is any, in the situation where everything goes online for the rest of the semester, of course, any funds or monies you've paid, we will get them back, of course. But please do reserve today so that you have a space, and we have enough spaces for all of you.
Thank you. Another question, which I'd like to direct to Provost Dahab. It is clear that vaccination will be a travel requirement in the near future. Is there any plan at the AUC to vaccinate students, faculty, and staff against corona?
Thank you, Michelle. I'm not the best one to answer that question. May I ask my colleague Ayman Abdel-Latif to answer it?
By all means, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Henry.
I also just typed in an answer. I'm sorry, I was answering it before you asked.
Please.
But go ahead, Ayman, sorry.
No, I defer to you, please. Do you want me to go ahead? You're on mute, Frank.
I saw a long list of questions, so I thought we'll get to some spoken and some written. I can just put, for those who aren't reading the answers. At this stage, we don't have the conditions in place to have a plan. So the answer is no, we cannot yet plan, but we know the conditions that we need in order to launch it. You can count on AUC to stay in the forefront of private employers and private universities to offer it when those conditions are in place. What are the conditions? Number one, the actual physical availability of government-approved vaccines. They are not available yet, broadly available. They're not available yet outside of government approved distributors or hospitals or clinics, and there are very few of those yet. It's just starting, it's early days in Egypt. And then number two is government regulations. Who will be allowed to do it? Will private entities be allowed to do this? At first, in any country, including in the United States, it tends to be government entity, public health entities of one sort or another, and then it goes out to the private sector. We're not there yet. But AUC was the first, and we're still among the few private points in Egypt to have set up testing. And that's really been a great advantage for us in controlling this in our community. So we will be forward leaning. When it becomes possible to do it, for sure we'll do it. But right now, we cannot plan to do that, which is clearly not possible to do. When it does become possible, we'll be in the forefront.
Thank you, President Ricardoni. There's another good question in the Q&A box. Is it possible to allow students to have access to campus? Dina, could you answer that question for us? Are there any plans to allow students to have access to campus even if we're still online?
Well, students, in order to keep our community safe, we make sure that students who need to access campus, whether for academic purposes, and I think the provost can elaborate if there is issues regarding meeting professors or regarding the library, but in student life, if the student organizations, student clubs need to meet together in order to plan together, yes, we would allow this. And there is a system that the students have to apply and say the reason why they need to be on campus. And we would give approval if it is safe and as the question said, if the numbers are safe on campus. So the answer is yes, but we have a system to control the number of people on campus to keep everyone safe.
Perhaps as a follow-up question to that, how can we ensure that students in the dorms are not infected?
We've been very successful, and I don't want to cast the evil eye because we're now we've had a very good track record since March. We've had students in the dorms ever since COVID started. And I want to commend and congratulate our dorm residents. The students have been very responsible. They've been very careful, and we haven't had an outbreak so far, alhamdulillah. What we do is that before students check into their rooms, they have to take a test, the antibodies test, and so far so good. So we make sure that students come in without not having COVID so that they don't infect others. So we are taking all the precautions that we can, and so far so good, alhamdulillah.
Thank you. One question that was submitted in advance of the forum was a question that I'd like to direct to the provost. The question was regarding lab fees. Since currently we don't have access to the campus, perhaps you could address the question regarding lab fees.
Thank you, Michelle. That question actually comes very often in different campus conversation, and I'm happy to answer it again. Although we are fully online even for labs now, but still we have a lot of costs that we bear in the labs regarding, we have, for example, purchased new software to make sure that the students can access the lab remotely. We continue to support the academic area and labs through different funding that they in their budget. And I'm sure that also VP Ayman Abdul Latif have more details on specific software that we have purchased in order to support our labs. So that's why we still and we continue to charge lab fees. Ayman, if I...
Yes, by all means, thank you, Ihab. So there are a lot of expenses that we've had to put into making sure that the infrastructure is available for the students, not only to access the labs as such, but also so there are some pieces of software that simply couldn't be reached remotely, and we've had to invest in purchasing those and making them available to the students for free as part of that. So that is covered, in fact, by some of those some of those fees that are lab-based, but also the connectivity in general that we've had to increase multiple times or numerous times over the same period. So there are a lot of sunken costs that we've had to incur in relationship to COVID as well. So, you know, at best, we had hoped to balance those out and just have a zero net result out of those.
Thank you very much. As a follow-up and related question that was submitted, since we are not going to be on campus, or at least we won't be fully on campus this term, will this impact the tuition fees? Will they be decreased as a result? Perhaps President Ricardoni, you could address that.
Sorry, I took an instant to unmute. I regret that the answer remains as it's been this past dreadful year. Under the conditions of the pandemic, the adjustments we've made have in some ways reduced our costs in ways we can all imagine, less heating and cooling and cleaning necessary. On the other hand, most of our costs have remained the same. Our largest cost is employment. We employ 2,000 staff, 500 full-time faculty, and we haven't had any layoffs. So, and we're proud of that. We've had to reduce, we have reduced overtime. The work just isn't there to do, but we've been really bending over backwards to not have to lay people off. As a result of the pandemic anyway, we always have wanted to work efficiently and only have the people employed that we need to have employed to provide the services we do. But on the other hand, so some of our costs have been reduced. Others, the bulk of our costs remain stable and the same, but then some costs have sharply increased, especially in the IT area to enable what we're doing and the additional training and work we've had to do. And beyond the financial cost, people are just working harder in a lot of categories, especially the faculty who have had to adjust to these things, just as the students are working harder in some cases and in some ways. So our costs have not gone down, and our costs are what drive tuition. And tuition does not cover our costs. Everybody, even those who pay full tuition, the Egyptians who pay full tuition are only paying about 2/3 of the actual cost of operating this university and educating each of our students. So that's just the reality. And I don't see that changing. We haven't yet made a determination for tuition next year, but we're keenly aware of the fact that people are dissatisfied and finding it hard to justify paying what they've always paid while not getting the physical experience that they're getting from before. So it's a tough thing to manage every year. It's even tougher this year. We've, thanks to adjustments in the exchange rate that have worked in the favor of the tuition payer, not in the favor of the university, a large part of our expenses are in dollar terms, and most of our income is in Egyptian pounds. So fortunately, the way the strengthening of the Egyptian pound has helped our tuition payers this past year. It looks like the pound is staying stable. So I wish I could tell you that we would be able to reduce costs, reduce tuition in the future. All I can promise you is we're going to strive really hard, not only to reduce costs. That wouldn't be good enough. We know how to reduce costs. We could reduce the quality. We could pack more students per instructor, but we're not going to do that. We're going to keep the quality up and do everything we can to keep the costs down. And meanwhile, sadly, we're going to have to continue with the reduced physical presence here until the pandemic relents.
Thank you, President Ricardoni. Another question which I might direct to Provost Dahab is, what are, if any, latest updates in terms of negotiating better options for home connectivity for faculty, staff, and students while working remotely or even partially remotely? Perhaps VP Dina Barai could also answer that regarding students.
So thank you, Michelle. And you see me and Ayman smiling at the same time because I'm going to refer the question to Ayman again. Ayman.
By all means, thank you, Ihab. Thank you, Dr. Henry. Yes, so we have been working on these packages, and we have secured a special package for the students, and we went out with that actually in conjunction with Student Life last November, I think it was, and made it available to them with Orange. So we've had a lot of deals with the different providers. We actually are working also with data ADSL, so landline connectivity for our community at large, hopefully. And we continue to have corporate packages, those with data line with Vodafone and with Etisalat. Those are only unfortunately available for the faculty and staff. We've tried to negotiate with those companies for student packages. We just weren't successful, but we continue to try to get the best rates for the community, because it is one of the main pillars for e-learning, of course.
I just want to jump in for any students in need for support regarding IT. They should write to the Dean of Students, email Dean of Students, and we will work with Senior Vice President Ayman to help students with the packages they need to do their online learning.
Thank you very much. There's another question in the Q&A box regarding a look and investigation into grading policies. I think this is definitely you, Provost Dahab, if you could comment on that.
Yes, definitely. That's I should answer that, Michelle. So on December 5th, I sent to the Senate a request to review EUC current grading policy and to look closely at the grading policy at various institutions in the US. and to make recommendation regarding any long-term adjustments in our grading policy. And I was hoping that we get that before the spring semester starts. However, the Senate wanted actually to look deeply at that, and they wanted more time. So I received an email from the chair of the Senate requesting that they finish that study by the end of the academic year, which is I agreed to that, and they are currently working on reviewing our grading policy, comparing it to other US-based universities, and hopefully they will give us recommendation to consider by the end of this academic year.
Thank you very much. There is another question regarding digital resources in the library and also access to the library. So I'm going to open that question to Senior VP Ayman, if you could talk about.
Actually, I will take that if I may, Michelle. The library stays actually closed as long as the campus itself is closed. The reason that we're closing the campus and the library is to ensure the safety of our people, and we don't want to be a source of infection to anyone. That's why we're closing our campus and our library. However, most of the materials and resources in the library are available digitally. So if you need anything from the library, please contact the library. They will avail it to you. If it's not available digitally, they will make sure that you get a hard copy and you can receive it from the gate at AUC. So contact the library for that. And if you visit the frequently asked questions that actually we built to address COVID situation, you will find a clear answer and the link in that to the library people, so you can actually ask them for the resources that you need. Let me also update you on that. Currently, our Dean of Library, who is we hired him at the beginning of this academic year, is looking also to revamp the whole library and make sure that the library addresses the needs of the people in the future, and to make sure that everyone on our community can get the resources in the library anywhere, anytime. So this is a bigger project that's not related really to COVID, that VP Ayman, myself, and the Dean of Library is involved in it right now.
Thank you very much, Provost Dahab. Another question that we had in the QA box was related to commencement. Are there any plans for spring 2021? VP Dina Barai?
Yes, we've already announced that. I believe we at the end of last semester that we'll be running all the commencements that have been missed. That is all the school-based graduations for the class of spring 2020, and for the fall of 2020, we will have them on June 2nd and 3rd. That's for class of 2020 spring, and on the following week, June 9 and 10, the school-based graduations for the class of the fall 2020. And then we will have, as planned, inshallah, on June 17th, we will have the spring 2021 graduation, school-based graduations, and our large ceremony. Again, God willing, that we will be able to have all these, run all these graduations and commencements safely. We will do them outdoors. It depends on the condition. I mean, this is the plan. So yes, the answer is yes. We have a plan in place, and these are the dates.
Thank you very much. Another question in the box, I thought was quite expressive of some of the general concerns that students might have. If we were to go back on campus later this semester, what should I do if I contract COVID yet still have on-campus exams? Would you mind answering that question as well, VP?
Yes, I mean, of course, I mean, any student who is not well and cannot come on campus to take the face-to-face exams, this will be handled through the faculty member along with the Dean of Students, to make sure that the student will be able to be fairly graded, and of course will not be forced to come on campus with COVID. Provost Ihab, would you like to add anything more to that?
It's the long-term policy for you. See, if you're sick for one reason or another, it doesn't have to be COVID, and you have an exam, there is the process in place to make sure that you contact your faculty to inform him or her by that by your sickness, and the faculty will provide the proper accommodation at that time.
Thank you very much. Another question that has been submitted. Is there any, what's the update on requests regarding the grading policy in relation to attendance? The 6 absences equaling the F in the course. Provost Ihab, do you have an idea?
Yeah, we encourage the faculty to accommodate the students when it comes to attendance during that period. But again, participation in class is very important. Attending classes is very important. So we leave that decision to each faculty to adapt. So the standing policy of attendance is still there. And please, if you have a specific concern, discuss that with your faculty at the beginning. If you're going to miss a class, inform your faculty. And I'm sure that all of our faculty are very understanding to the situation that we are in.
Thank you very much. A very good question regarding admissions. There is no mention of the ACT test replacing the SAT test in Egypt for placement scores. Will students be able to apply using the ACT scores?
Short and quick answer is yes. And once I read the question, now I went to the website to make sure that our website is updated, and I did not get the chance to check it yet. So we will check the website and make sure that actually the new admission criteria is updated there to make sure that ACT is also replacing the SAT.
Thank you very much. Another question in the box regarding the dorm rooms. It says that these dorm rooms are now considered single rooms, although double rooms don't have a lounge or a kitchen. And there is really nowhere in the double rooms for students to have their food. So the question I think here is regarding the charge for the single room and a solution for having proper space for this new unit. VP Dina?
Yes, I mean, regarding the usually scholarship students, they're housed in double rooms. And of course, because of safety, we house them in single rooms. And regarding the food, I mean, I'm sure we have closed the lounges, but that's because of safety for during COVID. And that's how we've managed to keep the student residences safe for almost a year now. And I urge the student who wrote this to see how he or she and the rest of their colleagues are coping. And we in student residence will do our best to support what we can do to help students get food on campus. Yes, it's not easy. And again, I want to thank all the students who have been very responsible for almost the past year in the dorms.
Michelle, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
If I may go back to the SAT, the ACT tests, actually I checked the website now. Our website is updated and it says that you can submit your grade either the SAT, if available, or the ACT. So the website is updated.
Thank you very much. I think this question has been addressed, but the question's being posed again. So I think it must be a very important question regarding access to campus. Is there any possibility of having, for example, an online reservation system or some other way by which students could reserve and access the campus for various purposes, studying, meeting? Are there any plans in place to set up a system for them to be able to come and not to allow too many students to attend at one time? Dina?
Okay, in terms of studying, we have no plans for that because again, it's really hard we want to be fair. And so if we tell one group of students who want to come study on campus, yes, on what are our criteria, on what basis, then we should be allowing, to be really honest, everyone who requests, that they come, they are allowed access for group projects or studying. So for now, not yet, but we're really looking forward to the time when we can do that. So.
This is a question that was submitted regarding teaching experience online. Given the current online circumstances, are professors allowed to mandate students to open their cameras? And if so, if students have issues with laptop cameras or internet connectivity, what should they do? I think, yes.
Yeah, Michelle, I think mandating the students to open the camera during an exam, that's something that's really a must. If the faculty sees that he wants to see the students during the exam, then the students should actually accommodate that easily. During the class, if I'm teaching, I'm going to talk about myself as an educator too. Yes, I want to see the students during my class, because that way I get a feedback from them, just seeing their faces, if they understand what I'm saying or not. So, the class participation, or actually getting excited as a teacher in class, it comes from the students itself. I would love to see my students. I would love to actually be with them in the same classroom in order to teach better. So if I'm teaching online, honestly, I would love to see the faces of my students. So, and student, I'm a parent. I'm telling you this. If you are taking class online, please do not take it in your bedroom. Please do not take it on your bed. Go to somewhere that will actually consider this is your class. Sit there so you can be really integrated with your other colleagues, and you can actually participate in the class better. That way you will be able to honestly understand and make your faculty himself or herself more excited when they go and teach. Teaching is not one way from, it does not go from one direction. It does not go from faculty to the students only. It actually, faculty gets a feedback even just by looking at your facial expression, and then they adjust themselves during the teaching. So my recommendation to you all, please open your camera. Please actually let your faculty see if you are getting the materials or not. The faculty are very smart when it comes to that, because they have been doing that for years. Without seeing you, without seeing your body language, they will not be able to understand if you understand the material or not. So I hope that I answered your question.
Michelle, can I just add one thing, if I may have, also, because you actually pointed out something really important. One of the complaints that I heard in the past is people want some privacy, and they don't want necessarily to show the background of their homes or whatever. But there's a way with Zoom where you can prevent that, right? And you can put a background that doesn't necessarily, I mean, you're there, and to the provost's point, the reaction and the feedback is available, but you don't necessarily have to show the background. And there's a link actually in the IT site on how to do that. So I think that also might support that and help.
I just wanted to add my thought. I absolutely agree with that. And the CLT has been so supportive of instructors who are looking for ways to try to inspire students in the online environment. And Netiquette is a big part of that, communicating Netiquette to the students and asking them to participate in that with them. So thank you. Another question that's come up in the box is once again regarding the grading policies. I know that the provost has already commented on the grading policies. This is asking, I guess, regarding the timeline for the examination of these policies. If Provost Tahab could comment on that timeline.
Yes, as you all know, on December of 2020, I asked the Senate to look at AUC long-standing grading policy and review it and compare it actually or benchmark it to grading policies in US-based universities. The Senate wrote back to me after they looked at, how broad is the task is, and they wanted actually to finish that task by the end of this academic year. I'm hoping that by the end of this academic year, we get the recommendation from the Senate, and the Provost Council will immediately study them and will take a decision on those recommendations after we receive them. So please give your feedback to the Senate. I think this is mainly by the Student Affairs Committee or it's by the Academic Affairs Committee of the Senate. I'm sure that they will meet with the students to get their feedback on the grading policy. They will meet also with the faculty to get their feedback, but they will also benchmark our grading policy to those universities in the US.
Thank you very much. A question in the Q&A box is about the final exam schedules. Last semester, many students had difficulty with on-the-ground exams back-to-back with online exams. Are there any steps or any plans in place for the final exams to avoid this issue?
I think we discussed that during last semester. I'm sorry that I'm not aware of the problem, but what we discussed last semester is to make sure the students who are on campus to take a face-to-face exam are allowed also to stay on the campus for other exams that they may have during that day. And we opened rooms for them, and we made sure that those rooms will have only few number of students to ensure the safety of our students. So if there is a particular problem that happened last year and I'm not aware of it, I'm asking the person who asked that question to email it to me at provost@AUC. I will look into that problem and will hopefully learn the lesson and enhance our system for this semester.
Thank you. If there are any other questions at this time, you could raise your hand and ask your question directly to the panelists, or you can type your question in the Q&A box. Another question that came up was regarding the Ramadan schedule this year. Are there any changes to the Ramadan schedule, given that we will be online?
May I take that, Michelle?
Yes, please.
On Tuesday, we had our academic leadership forum, and that's actually all the chairs in all schools in the university, plus deans, plus associate provost, plus associate deans. And that also question came in, and we sent it right away to the registrar to update to actually answer it. So actually expect an answer to that very soon from the registrar. The registrar is always on top of those things, and I'm sure that they have already Ramadan schedule in place. But the question mainly came also about the time slots after iftar for graduate students, and we're looking into that too. So stay tuned. We will receive an email regarding Ramadan schedule very soon from the registrar.
Another question is directed for Dr. Ehab. Are there any trends that you observed in the end of course evaluations for online teaching? And if so, is there any efforts in place to adapt that online teaching to those evaluations?
Yeah, we're looking into the trends between the evaluation, GPA, and the issues related to online teaching. There is a study going on now. We had only 2 semesters of data. That's last fall and the spring before that. And we are trying to, based on those 2 points, we're trying to find the trend. It's really hard to find the trend yet. But what we have found so far, and this is not unique to EC, but it's sad actually thing to say now, that the academic integrity cases has increased a lot in AUC with online teaching, and that's something that we need to address. It's very important. The academic integrity affects the credibility and the integrity of our degrees, and we should take that seriously, and we will take it seriously to make sure that we actually protect the value of our student and our alumni degrees.
Thank you very much. This could be for Provost Dahab or any of the other the panelists here. Do we expect that online teaching is going to become a permanent part of education at AUC? Which disciplines in particular do you envision going online?
I will not answer that, but actually I will pave the way to our president to answer that. The president has formed several committees a few months ago to address the impact of pandemic on the future of AUC at large. Part of that study is the long-term impact of pandemic and how would that change AUC academic offering. There is a committee that's looking at that particular issue. And of course, offering online education in the future is part of their mandate, is led by Dr. Ayman Ismail from the School of Business. So Frank, if you would like to talk about that President Excellence Committee.
Sure, and I can also give a broader answer to Professor Mehrez. Simple answer is yes, or yes, but. Online teaching in higher education was already spreading rapidly through the world before I came to AUC. In the summer that I was preparing to come and I was reading in, and I actually took a course for new presidents at Harvard, we had a whole session dedicated to that by one of the leaders in the field. And it has been enjoying explosive growth. It is not a panacea. It is not the right tool for every problem or issue. It's not something magical that will, apply to every course or every discipline. But it has enabled amazing penetration of education to people who didn't have access before. It has brought some costs down. It has done a lot of positive things, along with introducing new stresses and disruptions. So it was already a feature of the higher ed landscape in the world. AUC is a part of that landscape. We have to be one of the leading edges of it. It is a competitive landscape. If we do not stay up with world trends, we will be left behind and ultimately not prosper. What COVID has done is accelerate that which was already underway. And I'm pleased to say, without boasting, I guess maybe it is boasting a little bit, that AUC was already pretty well prepared. We were aware of the trends, and through our CLT, we were already doing a lot. A good number of our faculty already had were using it from time to time. And now I think we're probably the best in Egypt, among the best in the region in terms of executing. Does that mean we're all going to go online fully in most disciplines? I don't think so in the near term, partly because humans just seem to love getting together. Look at all the questions, the bulk of the questions we're handling here. The yearning to be together, even if we're successful at the learning through the intermediation of online technology, even when we get the basics of what we need, we don't get the deeper human connectivity and satisfaction and the deep forms of learning that are there when students get together with each other and with their really masterful teachers. So I think it's going to be a blend, Dr. Samia, and I think that's good. I think that's exciting. But I also know that there will be reasons not to do it, and why people will not wish to rush into it headlong. Don't worry, I don't think we're going to be doing any reckless substitution of online learning for the more traditional one that people come to AUC for. It's a good thing, but we will use it as one tool among many.
Thank you very much, President Riccardoni. I think we have time for just one more question. There are actually two very related questions. The study period during finals week is of some concern. One study day before the finals week is not enough. Can we extend the study period to more than a day? Is that possible with the current system?
Nothing is impossible. Let me look into that with the registrar and get back to the community on that during our next campus conversation. I will be able to answer that, but I will study that with our registrar and get back to the community.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank all of our panelists for sharing this information with us and our community, and all of our participants for the wonderful questions that you've submitted. And I look forward to another campus conversation in the near future. Thank you.